welcome back to Lost and Cancelled Games. I know it's been a hot minute since the last video I did, but I figure I will do one of these again because lost media is just one of those topics I'm really passionate about and keep coming back to. And in the case of this channel, if you're unaware of it, I talk about lost and cancelled games. Whether they're games that didn't get past a certain development phase, or games that were completed and announced but never released for some reason. Hell, I will even throw the ones whose existence is not confirmed sometimes. Because, let's be honest, who doesn't like a little video game urban theory here and there? But enough chit chat, let's just get into it. The original Radikal Bikers is a game that was released for the arcade and PS1, and it was a pizza delivery racing game similar to the likes of Crazy Taxi, only instead of riding a taxi, we will ride a motorcycle. I gotta say, I never seen this game before, but it does look extremely fun if I do say so myself. Anyway, this game had a Game Boy Color version in the works that got canned for unknown reasons, and which for the looks of it, consisted of a top-down isometric view type of game, which, if you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know it's an aspect I love a lot when it comes to scaled-down versions of games on a portable console. And here it does seem like the formula used in the arcade version will have worked pretty well, honestly. There's also a press release for this version of the game that reads the following: "Jump on your scooter and take up the challenge. Through the busiest streets in the world, you got to avoid trucks, cars, police, obstacles, and people in a pizza-fueled dash for glory. Take the challenge and race your way across Paris, London, New York, and the true home of pizza, Italy." Now, this version will have also featured game modes such as Classic Arcade, with a K, Radical, and 2-player Dash for Glory. While it does suck this version of Radikal Bikers was never released, the ROM for its prototype was leaked some years ago, so anyone is able to actually play it, which leads to a good conclusion in the end. As you may know, the N64 had a wide range of genres within its library, mostly composed of 3D platformers, shooters, and even your fair batch of 2D side-scrollers. But there's a couple genres that the N64 did not particularly have among its most popular titles. Among those ones, there's obviously the lack of RPGs, aside from, well, that one. But also the lack of a very certain genre, visual novels. And the N64, more specifically the N64DD, had a visual novel game on the works, with this one being Metal Slader Glory 2, which is the sequel to a game of the same name which was a sci-fi visual novel / graphic adventure developed by HAL Laboratory, yes, that HAL, and published in 1991 for the Famicom. Now, I really don't know anything about this game, nor am I going to deep dive into the lore of it just for the sake of this video, but according to the Wikipedia article, Metal Slader Glory was a game set in 2062, after humans colonized the moon and established several space stations, and a character named Tadashi discovers a message inside a giant mech that suggested the Earth was in danger. And now it's up to us to investigate the mech and, as Tadashi, speak to other characters and pick the correct dialogue options. The sequel to this game was going to take advantage of some of the N64 DD features, most notably the internal clock. But unfortunately, and most likely because of the failure of the N64 DD in sales, this sequel got cancelled, and instead HAL decided to make a remake of the first game for the Super Famicom under the title Metal Slader Glory Director's Cut. This game will be released in 2000, and as an interesting tidbit, it will be the last ever game published for the SNES in Japan. It really makes me wonder just how many console games planned for the N64 DD were out there. Maybe one day I'll make an exclusive console games video on this specific console. Popil is an obscure platformer which was being developed for the SNES, which actually does not have a lot of information regarding it, and it's pretty much a forgotten and lost project that had no proof of its existence until Twitter user Dosun Sesti found some images of said title extracted from a French magazine and posted them online. There's also a couple seconds of gameplay from this video showcasing what the game will have looked like in terms of gameplay. With us being able to control this little guy and just doing some casual platforming in what seems to be an industrial/futuristic level type of area. A jetpack also is featured as a mechanic, which would have probably been used a lot more in terms of platforming. And according to Unseen64, the game bears some resemblance to another obscure platformer for the SNES called Pop and Twinbee Rainbow Bell. As I mentioned before, there isn't really a lot of information for this title. It isn't known how much into development it was before it got cancelled, or even the reason why it ultimately was never released. But at least I'm glad there's a way we could see what the game was about, albeit in a very vague way. Broken Circle is a cancelled RPG for the GBA that was being made by Seven Raven Studios, based on Nordic mythology, and which went through a tumultuous development cycle. Apparently publishers weren't interested in the game because it proved to be a huge risk to cover the release costs associated with the game due to it being made for a more expensive 256MB cartridge. And unfortunately, by the time the developers managed to lower the requirements of the game, the GBA lifespan was ending. And while one publisher ended up showing interest, it was not approved by Nintendo to release any cartridges for their systems, nor was it of an enough high quality to be ported to the DS. But luckily, in 2007, Seven Raven Studios made a decision to release the ROM on their website, allowing anyone to try out the game by themselves. The game itself looks pretty interesting too, taking an approach on an isometric top-down view and what seems to be a field akin to an open world, which is always nice to see in a GBA title. And although I'm not someone who is particularly into RPGs, and trust me, I wish I was, I definitely feel like this is an interesting take on the genre, drifting away from the JRPG pixel art used for most games that were in the GBA and going for a more traditional sprite approach to it. Definitely glad it got preserved. Okay, so I actually wanted to save this one for last because it's a case I'm sure some of you already know. But personally, I wanted to talk about it for a while due to the interesting nature of it. Sister Sonic was going to be a role-playing action platformer in the Sonic the Hedgehog series for the Sega CD, featuring, as you may already have expected from the title, not the blue hedgehog we all know and love, but his sister, aka a brand new character they pretty much invented for this game. And what makes this game so interesting is that it was going to be a remake of the game Popil Mail, released for the NEC PC 8801 home computer in 1991 and the PC 9801 in 1992. But it got ported to other consoles like the Sega CD and the Super Famicom later on. Essentially, Sister Sonic was going to be an attempt to localize Popil Mail to Western audiences, and it was to feature the already mentioned title character, who will replace Popil Mail's main character, Mail, as well as various other Sonic characters replacing the other characters from the original game. Whether or not Sonic himself was going to be in this game is unknown. It all began in 1993 when the gaming magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly reported on a rumor in their gaming gossip section that a brand new Sonic game called Sister Sonic was going to be revealed at an event in June of that year. However, the game was never shown. And upon hearing of the game's existence, fans sent angry letters to Sega, encouraging the developers to not change the game and release it as the original Popil Mail game. Due to the overwhelming negative feedback, this version of the game was delayed and eventually cancelled, and what was released will be a brand new Popil Mail title called Popil Mail Magical Fantasy Adventure, and it will be released for the Sega CD and Mega CD in Japan in 1994 and the following year for Western audiences. As for Sister Sonic, there are no prototypes, pictures, or video evidence of any build of this version of the game, essentially making it a lost game, which really sucks seeing how Popil looks pretty unusual for what would be a Sonic title, which only makes the fact there isn't any media of the console game only a lot more disappointing. But as far-fetched as it sounds, I do hope that something surfaces from this version of the game at some point, seeing as how some pieces of lost media took decades until they became available. So why not this one? But then again, it will most likely not happen. Regardless, I still think this is one of the most interesting cases of a cancelled/lost game out there. So if you didn't know anything about it, I hope you found it as interesting and as intriguing as I did. But yeah, that's it for this video. I know it's been a hot minute since the last video in this series, but it's always cool to come back to this type of videos every once in a while, as someone who loves lost media as a topic in general. So I hope you all enjoy this video and discover a lost or cancelled game you may not have heard of before. Once again, a friendly reminder that I'm also on Twitch streaming almost every night, even though it can be difficult sometimes because of my full-time job. So if you wanna drop by, definitely consider it, it will help me a lot. And if you also want to support me even further in an additional way, I have a Ko-fi that you can click on and support me if you want. It's always appreciated but never mandatory. And with that said, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video. Take care, bye!